beautiful faces as we discuss this. Okay, great, great. Ooh, I see Doreen, I see Anita. I'm waiting for Ned. Yes, I see you. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, you're welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
You're
for
welcome, all of
joining
you.
us.
Yeah.
You're welcome too.
Yes. Hello.
So guys, you forgive me for the noise in the background. I'm in a hotel, so there's some function going. My apologies for that. You just bear with me.
No problem.
I'm thinking we have to start this, then the other guys will just find us when we start this discussion. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so excited. My name is Athena Stella Marion, and I'm going to be moderating this session. I'm a communication consultant. I work with a communication agency here in Uganda. It's a global agency called Hill and Norton Strategies. But then I'm so passionate about humanitarian work, women empowerment, youth empowerment. You'll find me everywhere. It's just something that I'm passionate about. So I hope everyone can still hear me. We're gonna go right dive in. So we shall do the introductions. Let's just do the introductions so that we know one another as we wait for other guys to join in. Is that okay? I'll start with you, Doreen. Doreen, you could just introduce yourself so that we get to know you. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Just apologies in advance. My net is quite bad. But I'm Doreen and I'm currently in my second year at university. Yeah, I'm studying nursing. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I came here to the UK for university. And I identify as being an intersectional feminist. I really care about gender equality, especially girls' education. That's something I'm really passionate about. But after reading about it, I realized there's other issues that affect it. So now I focus on other things too, like period poverty and other things that might affect girls and their education.
I didn't realize I'm muted. Sorry, guys. Thank you, Doreen. Thank you. Oh, we could also hear from Anita, please.
Hi.
You could just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Anita Kunda. I'm 16, she, her pronouns, and I live in the UK, but my parents are born in Nigeria, and I'm Nigerian. So the work I do, I'm a youth activist and a public speaker, and I'm the founder of Girl Up Manchester, which is a group that empowers young girls, get them connected with professionals in the professions they want to be in to make sure that they actually can bridge the gap between that. I'm also an intersectional feminist. I'm pretty much covering all topics when it comes to feminism and activism and human rights in general. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right, thank you, Anita. We could then hear from Annette. Annette, if you're there, I would love to hear from you. You could just introduce yourself.
Thank you. Actually, my video is off because I'm having a very crazy network connection and I'm in Nairobi, so it's crazy. They don't get it. So I'm okay, Jeanette. I really identify myself also as a feminist, but I'm more of an humanist. So I'm so involved when it comes to women rights projects, and I'm currently coordinating an amazing project called Zara's Dream. And we are bringing in women from all over the world, but Africa is our main center, though it's based in New York. And I'm heading all of the sisterhood community. So and I'm the youngest in the crew. So it's an amazing thing. I'll send for you guys the link so that you guys may join in. And also, I love human rights. My previous job, I was a human rights officer, and I was dealing with policing when it comes to police, how the police are handling people in public, you know. And currently, I'm just involved 100% on women rights, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much, Stella and Handsome. Thank you.
Ooh, all right. You see the profiles in here. I'm excited about the discussion. I can't wait for it. Hansley, I see you're there. Could you just introduce yourself? And then we can kick this off as we wait for the other panelists. Please, take it on.
Yes. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, where you are. My name is Anselm Palukumat. I'm a master's student. I'm doing business administration. I'm also the founder of Upendo Charity Foundation, also executive director. That's all. I'm a Congolese, but living in Uganda. I think I'll go back to Congo next year on 2021 when I'll graduate. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone, for our panelists, they're already there. Really excited to see all of you here. It's a pleasure for me to have you, all of you, and to discuss such a topics which is going to help our sister and even as men. Thank you so much. I think that is all. Thank you, Stella.
All right. Thank you. I've seen Esther is on. Esther, would love to hear from you. You could just introduce yourself and shall get this going.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Esther. Please go ahead.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I am Akatkunda Esther Birunji, founder of the Birunji Charities, an organization that focuses on women and women's rights and all that. I'm very happy to be here and to be part of this conversation. And I'm from Uganda.
Ooh. Okay. That's it. I think Ivan will be joining us later on. Ivan is the public relations officer for Remnant Generation. He's one of the panelists, but for now we could just start off this discussion. So today, most of you are familiar with the topic we are discussing. It's on gender-based violence and how we can stop this child marriage and all that. So something interesting, during this lockdown, the government, that's the Ministry of Gender Labor, reported a lot of cases of gender-based annual crime report. Gender-based violence cases that were reported and investigated increased by 4%. I'll just take you back a bit from between 2015 and 2016. And then during this lockdown because of COVID-19, the Minister for Gender and Labor said that over 3,280 cases were reported to police. That's just in April. So imagine what has been going on for all this time. Imagine how many people have been suffering. So many women have lost their lives. So many kids have sort of gotten married off because the economy has been so tough. So that calls for us to have this discussion today. Like 30 years later, we are still talking about gender-based violence because nothing has been done about it. We have laws that are ineffective. So as young people, how can we create this change? So that's really our discussion for today. So I'll just ask one question that each of you can pitch in. I'll try so much to make sure we observe the time. So let's start off by asking, so what was the prevailing question that came to your mind when you heard about gender violence? What comes to your mind as an activist, as whatever capacity you're in? I'll start with Esther. Esther, share with us, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Esther, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Stella. To me, gender-based violence basically refers to harmful acts directed to an individual based on their gender. We have seen a few cases where it is the men that are the victims. Most cases are the women. So to me, it is a serious violation of human rights and it is threatening to health. So it is something that we really need to open our eyes to and come together and fight against as a nation and as a continent. Yeah.
Thank you, Esther. We could also hear from the others. Could go first, then Doreen, then who? Then Annette, please.
Okay. So the question that comes to mind for me when I think of gender-based violence is definitely the education around violence and domestic abuse in relationships, because statistics show from the UK at least that the majority of people who are actually disproportionately affected by domestic abuse are young girls 18 to 25, that age group who are just finished college or sixth form here. So looking at the actual education they have surrounding what is an abusive relationship, where are your signs, when do you need to stop, when is it the time to say, okay, this is too much? Because as you've already said by the definition that Esther gave us, domestic abuse isn't always physical. Sometimes it's the really loud shouting for no reason. Sometimes it's the banging the wall, breaking things around you, even if it's not touching you. So I think it's important to look at that. And again, as Esther said, it is men as well. I think for the UK, the statistics are 4.2% for men, 7.4% for women. So I think it's an important thing that needs to be tackled on that aspect. Also, I think for Manchester specifically, where I'm from, we had 32,500 cases when it came to domestic violence that were actually reported to the police. So that means there were a lot more that went unreported, and a lot of people who weren't able to report because it was too late. And that was actually an 11.4% increase from last year. So it's not getting better. There isn't anything in place that's actually helping. So for me, it's the education around it and how severe are the sanctions when someone is caught or in that act of actually committing the domestic abuse.
Thank you, Doreen. Then Aneta.
Yeah, so just to continue from what the others have said, when I initially thought of gender-based violence, I'd always just think of the physical or the sexual, but there's actually other things that fall under abuse, whether it's emotional, financial, etc. And just like Anita said, men do get affected, but obviously it's not at the same rate as women get affected. So often men who experience abuse, they won't say anything about it because of gender expectations and stereotypes that men have to be the stronger ones. So that they're supposed to have in society, so they won't speak up and they'll suffer in silence. So that's one thing I think about. Then another thing I think about is a lot of the times women are expected to go out of their way to protect themselves or prevent abuse from happening to them. But I think it needs to involve everybody. Both boys and men need to be educated about abuse or violence so that they know not to do it, instead of expecting women to do everything that they can to prevent it from happening to them.
Annette, we're waiting for you. Admission, you could just go after her.
Okay, thank you. So me, when it comes to gender-based violence, I feel its main causes are disrespect for human rights, gender inequality, and abuse of power. And when I hear of gender-based violence, my first thought is the survivors. In most cases, they want to get justice. So we want cases of GBV to be investigated and perpetrators prosecuted for their crimes, and also they need to provide compensation to the survivors. Most of the time, we blame survivors instead of holding the perpetrators, accountable. So because without them, who oppresses us and make us victims, we won't be like having this kind of conversation. So survivors need legal support, they need health support, they need psychological support, but these actually in most cases tend to be very expensive for ordinary people to afford. Ordinary people include men, women, girls, children. It's so hard for them to afford. Though in my country, we have organizations and institutions that provide free legal aid to survivors of violence and also facilitate their court representation for free. And again, thinking of it, delivering justice to victims of GBV requires strong policies and strong legal framework that should protect human rights and ensure effective mechanisms when administering justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You all mentioned very important points right there. For most of the countries, realize it's almost the same, like it's happening everywhere. It's not an isolated case, like it's happening in every country. And it can be in very many forms, as you have mentioned. So many times people think gender-based violence has only to be physical, but realize it's so many things. We're having at an event organized by Upendo, where we had women and we discussed this topic. It was quite hot. From what Annette mentioned, policies and laws in place, but realize that most of these laws are ineffective. And that's what draws me to my next question to Esther. Esther, with all these laws in place, why is it still we have so many domestic violence cases that are still happening? One would think that since we have these laws, then the cases should be reducing. Are the people in authority doing the right things? What do we need to do? Your thoughts
Okay,
on that,
thank you
please.
so much, Stella. Yeah, first of all, like the previous speaker said, we have to acknowledge the fact that there are different forms of gender-based violence. It's not only physical, it can be verbal, it can be economic, it can be emotional, and all these other different types of abuses. So why is it still at a rise? Why is it at an increasing rate? First off are the weak laws. We do have laws in Uganda, in Africa, that try to create awareness against gender-based violence and all, but they are very weak. We see in situations, for example, in Uganda, it is very rare to find a woman, for example, taking her husband to the police. You will reach there and they will laugh at you and you will have nothing to do. So our governments haven't really been so effective in implementing the penalties and the fines against gender-based violence, which I think has actually lagged us behind. If the perpetrators would actually be exposed and punished, I feel like it would reduce. Then another reason why gender-based violence is still on the rise is a sense of entitlement. We have men that feel entitled to these women, that feel like they have control over them. They can beat them anytime they want. They can talk to them in any way that they like. Societies in Africa are still a bit backward. There's a lot of chauvinism that is still going on, where men think that they're inferior over us, and that is one of the reasons why gender-based violence is still on the rise. Then we also have the media. The way the media portrays women is quite degrading. You know, we are portrayed as objects, and in most cases we are not credited to our potential. All they see is our looks and all. So the media has also shaped men in such a way that they think we are, you know, objects, which also now makes them feel entitled to doing all these things to us. Then there is also a case of social learning, where the perpetrators have grown up in families where they are being beaten by their parents, or they have seen their dads beat their moms, or they have seen their moms beat their dad. So they have been raised in a way that they feel like it's okay for men to be violent. It's okay for children to be abused because of the families that they were raised in. So it has also been an issue that has caused gender-based violence to be on the increase. The major reason is I will go back to chauvinism, is men feeling like they have some sort of entitlement over these women, believing that you have power over your partner, making them do all these different things. So I believe it is a gross violation of human rights, and it should be something that is fought against. Then a point to note is that any woman can face abuse. There has been no specific personality trait that makes a person more likely to abuse. Anyone can be abused. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Wow, what a great submission from Esther. Esther, I agree with everything that you've said. I think this is a bigger issue than that the laws, only the laws cannot bring this out. So I think society needs to work as a whole to make sure some of these things are worked on. Because it's society that raises these men who think you only have to resort to violence to solve most of these things. So I think it takes a whole, like we say in Africa, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And I think society needs to go back to that. If we can teach our men better, to know better, then we can have more families that don't know violence. I think I agree with you. Unless someone wants to submit something, I'll just go to the next question. Ivan, I see you've joined us. Would you like to submit something? Ivan, are you there? Okay. Oh, here, there it goes. Ivan, please. Ivan, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Ivan Invalibola. Is that
Okay.
better now?
Yes,
Okay.
it's better. We can hear you.
Okay. Ivan Invalibola. I work with Remnant Generation. We help sexual abused girls that come into our care, but we not only help them with medical care, we also have a comprehensive and holistic approach to them when they come through our care. So we rescue them, we restore them, and we ensure that they thrive after that. I had the submissions from Esther, and I feel that the issue about is not something that we lack in Africa. It is something that is there. But how are we as people that are pushing for a change addressing this? I think we need to also look at the laws and how they are implemented and how creatively we can make sure that everyone is brought on board. For example, for us in the sector of crisis pregnancy, we have seen a shift and we keep to push for more changes. For example, under the laws that we know, for example, if the girl is going through a court process, there is something that is being championed now to ensure that they can still use those to address the same issue in court about her experience with the violence, and then also the people in the line of receiving these court cases and people that are working on these same cases of violence. Like, for example, are we able to have female surgeons at some angles? Because if we are addressing gender-based violence, then we need to look at also these issues. Are you sure that the girl or the woman would be more comfortable with a surgeon who is a male in the picture of the perpetrator? Are you willing to, even under the laws, yes, the laws are working, but are you able to make sure that even when it works, there is no parent that is negotiating out of court? Because we know that from such experiences and practices of limiting access to justice, you are going to have the same cycle of violence and abuse. So the laws are strong, but implementation, how are we fighting to make sure that every time the court case comes up, is followed all through so the perpetrator is stopped? We have had cases whereby a gentleman is able to abuse over 3 victims and it continues, but one person stands up and it stops there. So we need to look at also beyond the laws we have, because they are strong, but how do we make them work better when implementing them?
Wow, Ivan, what a great submission there. You know, we are speaking with someone who's involved with these girls every day, who has to see most of these cases every day. So we appreciate your contribution and we appreciate the learnings. Thank you so much for lending your voice. I'll just go next to the next question unless someone has something they want to say. Wow, Ivan from Annette, they said thank you. That was quite a great submission. So I'll go to my next question to Doreen. Doreen, we often hear cases of violence against women and support programs for them. What about when the violence is done on the opposite sex? Do men have the same aid? And also, what measures exist for men who are victims of violence by women? Guys, this is not funny, but it really happens. I've witnessed this and I see it happen. So yeah, Doreen, you can take that up.
Okay, yeah. Like we've been talking about, usually when you hear about gender-based violence, the first victims that come to mind are women. You don't really think about men. And like I said, that has to do with the way society views the different genders. Men are expected to be more powerful and higher holding in society, and women are viewed as being more inferior to men. So the fact that a figure that's supposed to be inferior is able to perpetrate abuse, it's something that people can't imagine. So when a man goes out, or if he's brave enough to speak up about it, oftentimes he probably won't be believed. It will take a long time for people to actually take the case seriously. So a lot of men tend to not speak up to avoid having their manhood or holding in society threatened. And also if they do speak up, they're worried about somebody not believing them. So I feel that although there are aid or help that is available, it's not directly only for women, although it's targeted to women, because I said when people think about gender-based violence, they think more about women. It's there, but men can access it, but it's the
Annette, we
issue.
are losing,
Hello?
we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
All right, yeah. So as I was saying, there are services available, like
We
in the
can hear you.
Yeah, there's domestic helplines. They're not said they're specifically for women, but obviously they are targeted towards women mainly. So at times men may feel that they can't access these things, and if they do access them, there's a worry of them not being taken seriously. So I feel that there needs to be more work done to raise awareness of the fact that men can be abused and that they do need help and support if that happens.
Sorry, I lost you guys. Who was speaking? Doreen?
Yes. Did you hear the
Please.
last bit? Okay. Yeah, so I'd ended with saying that I think there needs to be, when we talk about gender-based violence, we need to include the fact that men can also experience the abuse, and that these services that are available also need to be targeted towards men too, not just towards women, so that men feel comfortable to open up and speak about the issues that they may be experiencing.
Okay, do we have organizations that come to the aid of men when they experience violence? Do you know of any? Are they there?
That's a good question. I've actually never heard of any well, through my readings, I haven't come across any organizations that are specifically targeted towards men. It's usually always towards women, and I feel like people always focus on the majority rather than on the experience of the minority. So you find that there's more services targeted towards women, but I personally haven't come across many that are focused on men.
Okay, thank you for that submission. Ivan, do you know of any organizations that come to the aid of men who experience violence in any form? Because if we're going to talk about equality, then we have to be balanced on all sides.
I've had a few people that can do interventions like counseling and the safe shelter locally, but I'll have to dwell more on that on the list. But there are people locally that are doing that. However, we are also as an organization looking at intervention mechanism to that effect. For example, during COVID, despite the schools being closed, we were able to go into communities with permission of local authorities to do a project called peer-to-peer community skilling and sensitization project. In that project, we are able to teach these young boys and girls about sexual abuse prevention, and then how to protect yourselves. And then we had some course units on self-defense. So in that way, we know that these little ones at that age, and also when they go back home, they are going to share the same information and also look out for others and support. Why? Because we know that people, when you speak up, anyone can help you easily. So we believe that that approach can also help people or a girl. So there are people that are willing to report for others. So the awareness is important, and then the empowerment. This week, we had to give them whistles. What does that symbolize? That you don't need to keep quiet, that you can speak up. When you see something, you say something. So we know that even when we empower these little boys, they can also help each other, look for help and seek this help in time. This week was started on a sad note at office because we had this little girl that was rushed in. She was abused, but she could not speak well because she was in a sorry state. But all she told her mother was that, please take me to where I can get help. Now, this girl that is below 18 was abused, was still, because she was drugged, so she was still recovering. But the moment she reached her office, she fainted. But at least she was able to reach out to us, and that is when we took her to hospital. She was able to, she's recovering slowly. But we believe that the more we let people know that it's easier to, speaking up is the first process. Even before you think of looking for a place for help, speaking up and seeking help.
Thank you, Ivan. That was quite a great submission. Thank you for the work you're doing. I think we need to have more of these where people can seek help and they can be helped. It doesn't matter the gender. We need to help people as human beings. Okay, someone has a question. Let me just check here before we move on to the next part. Give me a minute. Okay, here is a question from Ellie Rumama. Today we are living in the society where female gender is increasing in number, works and communities, and some gender violence will be increasing as well on male gender. Meanwhile, this is happening. Are you really trying to analyze the increase on violating men too? I think Ivan touched a bit on that, but maybe you could answer him. Like we mentioned, there's already work being done, but I think more needs to be done. Like we agree more needs to be done. That's our concession here. Okay, let's just move on to the next question. Unless someone wants to say something more based on what Elias asked, I just feel like the previous people have responded to that. Anyone? Okay, I take it we agree. So the next question is to Annette. Annette, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so South Africa is said to have the highest statistics of gender-based violence in the world, including rape and domestic violence. We want to know what, okay, I think this is supposed to be Kenya. We want to know what the government of Kenya can do to decrease this. What kind of policies, instruments are there to decrease violence against women? That should be Kenya, not South Africa.
Actually, thank you, though there's a difference. The question I was supposed to answer is different from this, but I'll just try.
Okay.
Anyway, so in gender-based violence is not only like common in Kenya only, but in almost all countries in the global south are so many victims are coming from those countries. And in the global south, you know, South Africa is having the highest. And when you come to the eastern part of Africa, we have Kenya, which has so many rates of GBV. And particularly in my country, during the post-election violence, in 2007 specifically, there was an post-election violence in my country, and women got raped, men got raped, children got raped, and they just found their justice yesterday. Is when around only 4 of the victims were compensated by the government. So when I look at such kind of cases where justice is really taking too long for these survivors, regardless of their gender, and I don't think if there's any man who was compensated, that's something that we really need to look at when it comes to gender-based violence. Like the way everybody has said, we don't just have to to put it be it's only a woman thing. It's only really affecting women only. It's really affecting everyone, regardless of their gender, even the transgender, the intersex, and all that. So to me, my country, and gender-based violence in my country is not only the one for physical. We have high rates of teenage pregnancies. Over the past 6 months, we have more than 200,000 teenage girls who are pregnant, and this range from the ages of 10 to 19. That's very high. And when you look at homicide cases and femicide cases, there's so many every day. Women get killed, men get killed, and that's so crazy. So to me, I think the way that we should address this issue of GVB is we should understand survivors, and when we come up with action plans that addresses GBV, we need to include them too in those processes. So one, we should
I think we have lost you there. Is it just on my...
Can you hear me now? Anyone who can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, okay, let's meet.
We can hear you.
So, my key interventions that need to be implemented to address GBV in my country is there's urgently need to respond to victims and survivors of GBV, and there's a need to broaden access to justice for survivors, and there's need to change social norms and behavioral through high-level awareness, raising and prevention campaigns, and also there's need to create more economic opportunities for women who are vulnerable to abuse because of poverty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You've done quite well, despite the fact I gave you the wrong question. Thank you so much. I'll just go to the next person. That's I'll go first to Anita. Anita, tell us how child marriage.
Okay, I think you cut off a bit, but I know my question, just about child marriage in the UK, yes? First of all, according to statistics, the majority of child marriages in the UK actually come from Bangladeshi families, which isn't, and out of the rest of the other 66, African countries are actually high up on that list when it comes to child marriage from the UK. So that in itself is a positive in the way that when people come to the UK, child marriage isn't as big of a prevalent issue, but for African countries, but other countries it is. I think another thing to note when talking about child marriage in the UK is definitely the fact that 27% of the victims are actually below 18 years of age when we're talking about that. And that's 363 cases. That makes up 27% of the cases. So I think that's important to note because, first of all, the legal age for marriage in the UK is 18. So a forced marriage and it happening at an illegal age is a big thing that needs to be talked about, especially with the massive age gaps we see in like African ethnic minority marriages, especially when they're forced. I think that's something that needs to be talked about, kind of needs to be stamped out of that type of tradition. Another thing when it comes to child marriage in the UK, it doesn't tend to be for monetary reasons, but more status-wise and tradition. And I think that's another thing that kind of needs to be eradicated. Not the fact that some traditions are great to keep, but some of them are actually inherently harmful, especially to women. They tend to disproportionately harm and oppress women. So things like that kind of need to be let go when we're talking about child marriage. Also, another thing was it's not just women who are actually married off. So for the UK, it is 282 cases that involved men, which was actually 19%. So another thing, when you think of child marriage, forced marriage, you kind of think of women who are forced into marriages. for their family, for the states, but it's also men. So I think that's another thing that needs to be covered and spoken about more, because men don't have the same outlook because of the stereotypes enforced by the patriarchy. Another point when talking about child marriages, the UK's law around child marriage and forced marriage. First of all, child marriage is illegal in general, but there is the Forced Marriage Act of 2007, which actually says if you feel you're in danger or you feel threatened by a forced marriage, it doesn't have to be actual physical threats. It can be verbal, it can be emotional, etc. You actually do have the right to apply and say, hey, I think I'm going to be put in a forced marriage, and the government can give you protection. Now, when it comes to the success of this law, it has been successful in not eradicating but reducing child marriage in the UK. But there is still a lot of work surrounding it that needs to be done to actually make it as effective as possible. And
okay, thank you. I think we have some questions. Let's just attend to these questions and then we see. Okay. This is from Chris to everyone. There are laws that support men's violence. Gender-based violence is one of the big concerns in Africa. In my country, DRC, how can men also report those outbreaks of violence, and how to fight them to support the early? Okay, I didn't get that, but yeah, that's a question. Can anyone respond to that? Coletta is speaking. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, oh, Stella.
Yeah, I just asked a question. Someone posted a question in the chat box. That's from Chris to everyone. Maybe this goes to people from the DRC. How can men also report those outbreaks of violence?
Should I assist, though I'm not from DRC?
Please, please.
Yeah, actually, when it comes to gender-based violence, it doesn't just mean that only women are supposed to like report when they're being violated. Even men like can just go to the GBV centers and just say this and this is going on, you know. But that just the way you say the stereotype that comes with it's only about women, it's not all about men. That is the only thing that really hinders men from going forward and reporting these cases. But the laws are there in each and every country. Gender-based violence is not just about women, it's also about men. And if you feel you're being violated, just go to the police station or go to the nearest GBV center and report the case. They will hear you and they will look after your case. So don't just be afraid, just go.
I think the issue is in Africa, men are made to think you have to be strong all the time. So you're not supposed to break down in public. You're not supposed to tell people, yeah, this one is doing this and this to me, because you may not be believed easily. So what other ways can men seek help? Is that a way for them? Or what we need to do to get men to speak up when they're being violated?
Yeah,
Ivan, you're a man in here.
Okay.
Yeah, please, Doreen. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say is, I think you mentioned it earlier on, is that there are services available. So, for example, people can go to the police and whatever to report. But it's the issue that will the police take it seriously when a man comes in and says, a woman has abused me? So I think there needs to be more education around the fact that men can be abused and that it's possible and needs to be taken seriously. Because as I mentioned earlier, these services are available, but it's a matter of, are the people who are giving these services, do they take the fact that men can be abused seriously, and will they follow up with cases where men are affected? So it's just, I think there needs to be more education and awareness about the fact that men can be victims too.
I agree with that. We just need to raise more awareness that this is something that can happen to anyone, and it's good to speak up when this happens to you. Ivan, you want to say something?
I believe it's something that can happen to everyone. The
Okay.
process of reporting should be the easy part. I
Yeah.
believe so. But the issue now comes into how does someone access this service that is available for them, because Africa has lots of apps that you can actually report abuse for both men and girls. There are these apps, but how prepared is the man to actually come forward? Can they stand? Do we now decide that, you know what, for the police officers that are receiving this, they should be trained to expect this instead of laughing? Okay, do we have men at these police stations that can receive these cases? Do men feel comfortable talking to fellow men about this violence? If they can't, then we agree that, you know what, let's have female officers that can receive these cases. Those that are going through apps and phone calls, because even Uganda has a toll-free number for children, for also adults. So if someone is able to call for help, how do we assess that they are able to stand throughout? They have the courage, they are strong enough, they won't pull out at one time when people start not to believe them. So also us that are supporting these people, we need to come from that point. Let's believe them as they are sharing this experience and they're reporting. But also, let's make a safe place for them to report and also to keep coming back and others to come, because the culture is still against men being open about what they're experiencing. So are we able to tell them to now be strong, that it's okay to cry, it's okay to share your bad experience and get help? So I think we can start from that to empower the men and also to make sure that the services are safe for men.
All right. Thank you so much, Ivan, for that submission. I think we just need to create more awareness, just like most of you have said. We can agree on that. I see Colette has joined us, so there's a question here that's supposed to go to her. According to UNICEF, child marriage are the highest in sub-Sahara Africa, where 35% of young women were married off before the age of 18. What steps should Africa take to work towards preventing child marriages? And also you could give us some causes of why young people get married early. Colette, please. Colette, are you there? Colette? Okay, I think she can't hear us for now. I'll just move on to the next question until she can be.
Maybe I could share some more light.
Sorry?
Because
Ivan, I can hear you.
child marriage for the case of Uganda. Can you hear me now? Am I
Yes, we
clear
can
now?
hear you. Yes,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Because for the case of Uganda, we know we have about 35% of the girls. So before the age of 18, these are children that are actually mothers. That is very sad. But again, if we are looking at the global scale, Uganda is 10th. So if those numbers are to go with, and now that we have the pandemic of COVID that has also helped kind of worsen the situation, because we may actually be looking at about 45 or 50%, because that we don't know. People are staying at home, children are not in school. This is all pre-exposing the children that already were at risk. We have, for example, parents that no longer have a livelihood that they had before COVID. So we are looking at the problem being magnified by even this pandemic. So what is the way forward? Yes, we cannot cry all through. We believe that there is a way. Now, everyone should play their part. In Uganda, we had at the start of COVID, we had a story whereby parents had a sales agreement with a perpetrator to take their daughter. But it took a community to fight to report that to police. So if everyone can play their part, girls will thrive. Yes, the education is now currently at a pause unless a child is maybe in a candidate class for the case of Uganda and other countries. But countries still continue to have these very forms of semi-education within the SOP guidelines to engage these little ones at home. Secondly, the culture aspect still has to be addressed heads on. We need to create more awareness because if the culture is that as long as the girl starts menstruating, then she's ready for sex and then she's ready for marriage. It is absurd. Yes, in our shelter, we receive girls from as low as 12 years that have conceived from incest, defilement, or rape. But it is something that we believe can be reduced if we are able to look at the cycle. How do we stop this cycle? From the numbers of child marriages and the victims that we name, there is a man behind each case. So what are we doing to address? How do we get the man involved? Yes. There is a case recently that we are working on, and we were happy to see that it was the father that was the father of this gentleman had abused all the daughters when growing up. So they rushed to actually get married, to get into marriage, just to leave their home because it was not safe. But this gentleman who had now reached over 76 years had abused another young girl. But his son, the brother of the sisters, is the one that stood up and reported the case. But you see now that cycle that was over those years stopped on that gentleman because of one brave move by the brother. We can have so many men like that that can do the same or stand up. But we also need to start mentoring these young men to know the right thing and to know that child marriage is something that would kill the nation that they even want to live in. It's a generation they will reach and they will also regret. So together, we can teach them and tell them that, you know what, we can do better and our generation can thrive and excel. So for me, I feel the culture aspect is something that we need to address. For communities that still believe that as long as the girl starts menstruating, she's ready, we can still engage them. For communities that feel that when you report a case of child marriage to police, they should come and attack you, then those communities can also be engaged to make sure that they support access to justice. Because every time you believe that people should just negotiate someone that has gone into child marriage, the perpetrator who has been behind this child marriage case should just negotiate with family and it ends there. The same person is going to marry another girl the following day. So let's encourage people to support the justice system, that let every case be reported. And local leaders, because we have communities where local leaders have decided that, you know what, if there is any case of child marriage and you feel it has been stopped at all these levels of police or court, please come to us. And they are personally following up this. So it gets back to the point of, can we have everyone to play their role? We can continue teaching people and create awareness, but we still empower them to know their role in their capacity. Can the doctor play their role? Can the priest play their role? Can the person who is transporting the perpetrator also play their role? Can they say something? So that is really my submission on child marriage. Sorry.
Thank you so much. I see Esther is now back. She was doing something. Esther, do you have any thoughts to add on to what Ivan has said? I just feel like Ivan has said a lot. for this discussion. Esther, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the steps I think that Africa can take to end child marriage are, first of all, educating the girls. The more these girls are educated, the more they know their rights, the more their confidence grows, the more, every girl has the right to decide their future, but not everyone knows it. So with empowering these girls and with educating them, comes with awareness for them. And then I also think we can rally wider communities to stand up for the rights of women and the community. This includes involving parents, involving the girls themselves, involving the government. If we are able to talk to parents and tell them the dangers of child marriages, some of these parents who even go ahead to sell their children, if we enlighten them about the dangers, they will come to face with the terms and also fight for the rights of these girls. Then we also have providing the girls and their families with economic opportunities, because most of these girls are being sold off by their parents because they do not have money. So if the government would come and actually provide economic opportunities, give some microfinance loans, it will lessen the economic problems, and the parents will stop looking at their daughters as economic burdens and sell them off at a very young age. So then we can also petition the government for those. There's some governments that still do not have proper laws on child marriage. So we can encourage them to make laws that can actually support these young girls. Yeah, so child marriage is a very serious issue that is happening around the world, especially in Africa. There are very few cases where boys are affected. In most cases, we see girls, where research has it that 82% of the girls are affected by child marriages. It robs the child of their childhood. It increases dropping out of school, exposes them to violence. There's so many issues that come with child marriages around Africa. Ending the practice will not be easy, but change is possible if we work together. If we can collaborate with the youth, if we can collaborate with the governments, with the parents, and even with the girls themselves, by educating them and by empowering them. I feel like those are some of the steps in which Africa can take to end child marriages around the globe.
Hey, thank you, Esther. We're coming almost the end of this session, and I feel like we have really discussed all these things exhaustively. Can we hear from Coletta if she's back? If not, we can move on. Is she there? Okay, let's just go back. Doreen, could you give us some last words or your parting shots or what you've learned from this discussion today as we wrap this up in like 1 minute? I'm gonna give each one of you 1 minute to just wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up is, obviously I did say what I do more is I focused on girls and women. And to be honest, I think I need to do a bit more raising awareness about men, hearing from other men and hearing other people's discussions about how men can be affected too in some of the gender inequality situations. So just learning about services available and using my platform to share that these services are available for men, and that if we're fighting for gender equality, both genders need to be considered. That's what I've learned.
We could hear from Annette.
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, like a few days ago, I read about this 16-year-old South Sudanese girl who sued her parents for attempting to force her into marriage. And I was so happy and so proud of her. And deep down, I was like, what if we educate more women, more young girls to know their rights? That's what will happen, when they now say no, and their no is no, you will not take them anywhere, they will sue you. That's what I really want. And when it comes to ending GBV, I think the African Union and our regional blocks, these are the EAC, the COMESA, ECOWAS, the SADC, and all that, they should ensure that the action plans that end GBV in these countries are implemented. And also, they need to listen to survivors, hear survivors, and just believe survivors. That's my main takeaway today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annette. We could hear from Ivan, please.
Thank you very much. My take home from this is
Ivan, you're breaking. We can't hear you.
to do more, and we
Get a
need
passport.
to be creative and continue or to improve. I've really learned a lot that we need to do more as regards to. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Clear?
You're clear. Yes.
Okay. I believe that everyone's role matters. So I believe that now we should be able to bring everyone on board. Is it the politician? Is it the parent? Is it the dad? Is it the askari? Is it the politician? So we can achieve more when we are united. I believe that what I've learned from here is that we cannot do everything in isolation. Even us, that because for us we help sexual abuse girls, but when we get cases of these boys that are abused, we refer them to another partner or people. So we should not work in isolation. We should work as a unit so that we achieve one goal. But Africa lacks access to all these social services because we can talk about the laws, but for example, during COVID, the initial lockdown, we know that the cases of violence or assault that were reported were less during the times when we had a stop on transport. But when transport was lifted, we know that more cases were reported. These are details that were shared by even the DPP office. So how do we make sure that it is universal access to everyone that needs support? Because even the pandemic may not be the only limiting factor, but we have futuristic challenges that may come up. So we need to continue being innovative, we need to be creative, but above all, unite. We can unite together and do something about gender-based violence. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for your great submission. I have enjoyed the discussion today. There's, I don't know if it's a question or a comment from Shafik. The problem of child violence in Africa stems from the issue of poverty. Just a minute. But we ought to ask ourselves how we can save the girl child. One, we need to fight the issue of poverty. This is great from the comments. And then sex education in schools. We need to deal away with ATS. Okay, great. I think it was just a summary of what we have been discussing here, and great work there. So as we are coming to the close of this, thank you so much for joining us. Also be reminded that this video or this whole session will be posted on
Hello guys, I think we have lost Stella. Stella has some problem with network, I think so. Hello, Stella, can you hear us, please? Yes, I was saying, I think Stella is not there. We have lost her. She has a problem of network. So thank you for everyone. Thank you so much. This video it was recorded. We are going to share it on our social media page and on our YouTube channel, Upendo Charity Foundation. I thank everyone who attended this event. Also, thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much, Annette, Esther, Ivan, Colette, Anita. Thank you so much. I think if you have something to say about we close, you can say it. And we wanted all of us to open our video so we can take a photo. I don't know. Can you open our video, please? We want just to take a photo to say bye bye. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you can hear me. Please, can you put your video? We want just to say bye bye. Wow. Thank you. So amazing.
Bye.
Hello. Just put on your mic on, please. Want to hear your voice so that we can hear from
Thank you.
everyone. Oh, thank you. Bye bye. I'm so proud of you guys.
Thank you
you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank you
welcome,
for hosting.
Stella. You're welcome, Stella. Stella.
Oh,
Asante
sorry,
sana,
my
shukrani,
video went
shukrani.
off.
Everyone has to
Sorry.
speak on how
Thank
proud
you.
of you are here. This is Africa, actually. Can you
Yeah, next time.
speak in I can speak in Swahili. Asante sana for being here. Doreen, can you speak please in your language, local language?
Okay, as I'll say thank you. Tatenda.
Tatenda, thank you so much. We want to hear from Esther. Jevaleko.
Mwebale nnyo twaniriza leero.
Thank you so much. Ivan, Jevaleko boss.
Ivan
Kale
has his
mwebale
language.
nnyo,
Want to hear?
but mwebale ino.
Kare,
Mwebale ino. Yes.
Kare. Shafiq, we can hear from you.
Mwebale nnyo, mwebale nnyo.
Allez. Chris, ça va?
Oui, ça va. Moi, je vais conclure en français. Merci beaucoup pour cette initiative. Hein. C'était vraiment intéressant.
Merci beaucoup, merci de ta part aussi. Stella, thank you. You can conclude. Stella, thank you. We give you the final words. Thank you.
All right. I'm so excited that all of you turned up for this engagement. Thank you so much. My apologies about the network. It kept logging me out. But this is Africa, guys. You understand, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was asked to say thank you in my language. It's Yalama and it's Afoyo. Yeah, it's so two things. Otherwise, thank you so much. Have a great, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are right now. And yes, Happy New Year. Enjoy the festive season until we have another engagement and call upon you to have such again. Otherwise,